Welcome, dear friends. Today we are going to learn about renal system. Acute renal failure. Acute renal failure is nothing but it is a syndrome characterized by rapid onset of renal dysfunction, chiefly oliguria or anuria, and there is sudden increase in metabolic waste product like urea and creatinine in the blood with consequent development of uremia. It occurs when the patient is ill or he is infected or there is injury or damage to the kidneys. Now let's take a look towards the etiopathogenesis. The cause of acute renal failure may be pre-renal, intrarenal and post-renal. In case of pre-renal cause, there is sudden decrease in blood flow to the nephron. There might be renal ischemia, disorders of or depression of glomerular filtration rate or both, and the cause includes inadequate cardiac output and hypovolemia or vascular disease causing reduced perfusion of the kidneys. Intrarenal cause is the disease of the renal tissue itself. These include vascular diseases of the arteries and arterioles within the kidney, diseases of glomeruli, acute tubular necrosis due to ischemia or the effect of a nephrotoxin, acute tubulointerstitial nephritis, and polynephritis. The post-renal cause include obstruction to the flow of urine anywhere along the renal tract distal to the opening of the collecting ducts. This may be caused by mass within the lumen or from wall of the tract or from external compression anywhere along the lower urinary tract, ureter, bladder, neck, or urethra. Let's take a look towards the pathophysiology. The driving force for glomerular filtration is the pressure gradient from glomerulus to Bowman space. Dependent on renal blood flow and controlled by combined resistance of renal afferent and efferent arterioles, there is a reduction in renal blood flow and it represents the most common pathological pathway. Pre-renal failure, these are the conditions in which there is normal tubular and glomerular function and glomerular filtration rate is depressed by compromised renal perfusion. Intrinsic renal failure, it includes the diseases of the glomerulus or the tubules which are associated with release of renal efferent vasoconstriction. Post-obstructive renal failure initially increases tubular pressure, decreasing filtration driving force, then pressure is equalized and there is decreased GRF. So we can say decreased uh, blood flow, renal blood flow causes renal ischemia and finally cell death. Initial ischemic trigger produces oxygen-free radicals and enzymes that continue to cause cell death even after restoration of RBF. The tubular cellular damage causes disruption of tight junctions, which might form obstructive cast, or it can allow back leakage of the filtrate, which further reduces the effective GRF. So during this period, kidneys are further affected by medication, which mostly includes pre-existing renal disease and radio contrast agents, aminoglycosides, atheroembolism, and CVS surgery, AC inhibitors and diuretics, along with small and large vessel renal arterial disease and NSAIDs and CHF and HTN. For cure of ARF, restoration of RBF is important. In pre-renal failure, the restoration of circulation blood volume is usually sufficient. In post-renal failure, relief from obstruction results in decrease of vasoconstriction. Intrarenal failure, there is removal of toxins and initiation of therapy for glomerular disease, which decreases renal efferent vasoconstriction. Once the blood flow to kidney is restored, functional nephrons increases their filtration, which is called as hypertrophy. If number of nephrons remaining is low, below the critical value, they continue to hyperfiltrate. But this results into glomerular sclerosis and ultimately causes complete renal failure. So what are the clinical features? Okay, mostly it is characterized by tachycardia, postural hypotension, reduced skin turgor, and cold extremities. The most common sign of in AKI is oliguria, where urine production falls to less than 0.5 ml per kg per hour for several hours. There is increased serum creatinine level. Uremia is observed, which is excessive potassium, hydrogen ions, and phosphate in the blood. Specific symptoms mostly includes nausea, vomiting, GI hemorrhage, muscle cramping, declining level of consciousness. The diagnosis is mostly based on detecting the serum creatinine or reduced urine output. The cause of the condition, such as fluid depletion, infection, or the use of nephrotoxic drugs, are often apparent on close examination of the clinical history. Fluid balance charts are frequently used. Records of daily weight are more reliable but are dependent on mobility of the patient. Other tests include measuring the BP, escalation of the heart for the presence of third and fourth heart sounds, presence of added sounds in the chest X-ray, pulse oximetry, presence of pitting edema of the legs or sacrum. Then you can also go for decreased skin turgor, which is a sign of fluid loss. Prognosis. The clinical features will depend to a large extent on the underlying cause of ARF and on the stage of the disease at which the patient is present. Syndrome of acute nephritis is frequent and it is associated with acute post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis and rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. The dysfunction results from extensive proliferation of epithelial cells and it is characterized by mild proteinuria, hematuria, edema, and mild hypertension. The syndrome which accompanies tubular pathology is caused by destruction of the tubular cells of the nephron, and the disease progresses through 3 stages from oliguria to diuresis to recovery. In oliguric phase, it lasts for 7 to 10 days and it is characterized by urinary output of less than 400 ml per day, and it leads to accumulation of waste products of protein metabolism in the blood and resultant azotemia, metabolic acidosis, hyperkalemia, hypernatremia, and hypervolemia. The specific gravity of the urine is low, but the concentration of sodium in urine tends to be elevated. In diuretic phase, there is onset of healing of tubules, there is improvement in urinary output, and this is believed to occur due to drawing of water and sodium by preceding high levels of creatinine and urea as they move through the nephron as to be excreted. The phase of recovery is seen with full recovery with healing of tubular epithelial cells and occurs in about half the cases while others terminate in the death. The process of healing may take up to 1 year with the restoration of normal tubular function. The prerenal syndrome, it occurs secondary to disorders in which neither the glomerulus nor the tubules are damaged and it results in prerenal syndrome. It occurs due to depressed renal blood flow. There is decreased GFR causing oliguria, azotemia, and possible fluid retention and edema. Since the tubular cells are functioning normal, the nephron retains its ability to concentrate the glomerular filtrate according to the adaptive needs. The treatment mostly includes fluid replacement, diuretics, blood transfusion, and medications. You can also go for post or intrarenal conditions, like you can go for surgery and medications. Also, patients they require hemodialysis, hemofiltration, or peritoneal dialysis to filter fluids and waste until primary medical condition is controlled. The chronic renal failure is different than acute renal failure. Here it is a syndrome characterized by progressive and irreversible deterioration of renal function due to slow destruction of renal parenchyma, eventually terminating in death when sufficient number of nephrons have been damaged. Acidosis is the major problem in CRF with development of biochemical azotemia and clinical uremia syndrome. Let's see etiopathogenesis. The disease leading to chronic renal failure can be classified into 2 major groups: those which cause glomerular pathology and those which cause tubulointerstitial pathology. The disease rarely remains confined to either glomerular or tubulointerstitial tissue alone. In the final stage, all part of the nephron is damaged. The diseases which cause glomerular pathology. Glomerular destruction results in changes in filtration process and leads to development of nephrotic syndrome characterized by proteinuria, hypoalbuminemia, and edema. Important examples include are categorized into primary and systemic. The primary glomerular pathology, it is major cause of chronic renal failure, and it is initiated by various types of glomerulonephritis such as membranous nephritis, membrane proliferative glomerulonephritis, lipoid nephrosis, and antiglomerular basement membrane nephritis. The systemic glomerular pathology, it occurs due to certain conditions which originate outside the renal system but induces changes in the nephrons secondarily. Major example of this type are systemic lupus erythematosus, serum sickness nephritis, and diabetic nephropathy. Now let's see the disease which cause tubulointerstitial pathology. Damage to the tubulointerstitial tissue results in alterations in the reabsorption and secretion of important constituents, leading to excretion of large volume of dilute urine. It can be categorized into 4 groups: vascular, infectious, toxic, and obstructive. The vascular causes, they can be long-standing primary or essential hypertension, which produces characteristic changes in the renal arteries and arterioles, and it is referred to as nephrosclerosis. Nephrosclerosis causes progressive renal vascular occlusion, terminating in ischemia and necrosis of the renal tissue. Infectious causes include chronic polynephritis. The chronicity of process results in progressive damage to increasing number of nephrons, which leads to CRF. Toxic causes, there are some toxic substances which induce slow tubular injury, eventually culminating in chronic renal failure. The most common example is intake of high doses of analgesics such as phenacetin, aspirin, and acetaminophen. Other substances that can cause CRF after prolonged exposure are lead, cadmium, and uranium. Obstructive causes, they cause chronic obstruction and mostly in the urinary tract, which leads to progressive damage to the nephron due to fluid back pressure. The example of this type of chronic injury are stones, blood clots, tumors, strictures, and enlarged prostate. Chronic renal failure mostly evolves through 4 stages. The first is decreased renal reserve. At this stage, damage to renal parenchyma is marginal and the kidneys remain functional, but the GFR is about 50% of normal. Okay, the blood urea nitrogen, and creatinine values are normal, and the patients are usually asymptomatic except at times of stress. The second stage is that of renal insufficiency. At this stage, about 75% of the functional renal parenchyma has been destroyed. The GFR is about 25% of normal, and it is accompanied by elevation in the BUN and serum creatinine. Polyuria and nocturia occur due to tubulointerstitial damage, and sudden stress may precipitate uremic symptoms. The third stage is the renal failure. At this stage, 90% of functional renal tissue has been destroyed, and the filtration rate is approximately 10% of the normals. The tubular cells are essentially non-functional. As a result, the regulation of sodium and water is lost, resulting in edema, metabolic acidosis, hypokalemia, and signs and symptoms of urea. And the last stage is the end stage kidney. Here the GFR at this stage is less than 5% of the normal and results in complex clinical picture of uremic syndrome with progressive primary renal and secondary renal symptoms. The clinical features include the patient shows metabolic acidosis, he suffers from hyperkalemia, there is water and sodium imbalance, there is hyperuricemia, and there is azotemia. The secondary manifestations shows anemia, integumentary system dysfunction, cardiovascular system dysfunction, and respiratory system dysfunction. The diagnosis is mostly based on ultrasound detection. You have to see the size of the kidneys. The kidneys are smaller in size than the normal. There is gradual rise in the serum creatinine, and numerous uremic toxins get accumulated in the CRF, and the patient has to undergo dialysis. The treatment includes, the goal is to slow down or halt the process of renal damage. You have to control the blood pressure, and treatment of original disease are important. ACE inhibitors and angiotensin 2 receptor antagonists are mostly used. They slow the progress of this dysfunction of kidney. There is replacement of erythropoietin and vitamin D3 and also calcium. You have to go for phosphate binders to control the serum phosphate level. After end stage is achieved, renal replacement therapy is required. So this was all about kidney failure. Thank you for listening.